everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I join you with a coffee. I never drink coffee, it's very adult. I don't like coffee, but for the purposes of this video, we've got a lot to get through. I do like coffee. I like coffee if it's really, really milky and it's got 2 sugars. This is my Belle mug from my set of 4 princess mugs by Ray Dunn that I picked up in Home Goods in America, and when I saw them I absolutely loved them, but I thought they were probably too big to drink from, and they're really not. Can confirm they're not. Today we are talking about my tips and tricks, pros, cons, do's, don'ts from our recent vacation. We went to Florida from the 14th of February to the 1st of March is when we flew back. There is a lot to unpack in this video, so I think it's best that we just delve straight into it. I will say from the get-go that Universal Studios was the best part of our entire trip. We all said that we could have quite happily spent the whole 2 weeks there. We had managed to get on every single ride on the first day of Universal Studios, and same for Islands of Adventure, we'd managed to get on every single ride. So we might have been a little bit bored if we'd have been there for 2 weeks, but there's so much to see and do in both of those parks. The street performances they're crazy good, but anyway, I'm kind of teetering on some of my stuff that I've got written down to tell you. So, sorry. Oh no. I want to cry. I spent about 3 hours writing out notes for the pros and cons of Universal, Disney, everything in between, and it appears that I deleted it from my laptop thinking it was something else. Cheers. So I guess this video is just going to be more of a chit chat then, and that's okay. So we flew out to Florida from Manchester with Virgin Atlantic, and they were amazing as always. We flew Premier, and my dad's seat was broken on the plane when we got seated, and so we were moved up the plane. So we were still in Premier seats, but we were actually closer to like the front where we were getting off on the other side. Mine and Mike's seats actually felt a little bit smaller legroom wise when we moved, but obviously you still get the Premier perks, and because it was a long haul flight, we watched films on the plane, we had lovely meals, and Virgin have always been great. Because it was Valentine's Day when we got to the check-in at Manchester, they were handing out love hearts. They also handed out love hearts on the plane, I think when we were landing. I could be wrong, but I think it was when we were landing, because I'm sure I remember thinking, are we allowed to take these into the States? So the flight was really smooth. There wasn't really any turbulence at all, which was quite unusual and enjoyable. So we landed, I think we landed around 2 p.m. We got our hire car. For our hire car, we used the company, and I would tell you to avoid them with a barge pole. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, so I might have to bleep their name. The company that I would tell you to avoid rhymes with fixed. So we got to our Universal hotel, the Loews Royal Pacific Resort, and I think it's one of their deluxe hotels at Universal. The setting was very tropical. It smelled of like sun and beach when you walked into the lobby. Check-in was super smooth. No one else was at the desk, so we just checked straight in. We've never stayed on property with Universal before, so the guy that checked us in told us whether it was best to walk in the morning or get the water taxi, and vice versa, getting back to the hotel. He had a map and he drew the routes that we would walk to get to City Walk, and then obviously to the parks from there. And he was just super helpful. The staff were amazing, can't fault them. We were club level and we had a garden view, and the view was lovely. Our room was really, really spacious. The bathroom was lovely. We honestly couldn't fault anything to do with the hotel. What is amazing in itself is, so for Universal, if you are staying off-site, you will buy your tickets, and then you have the option to buy 2 kinds of passes, and they are express passes so that you can get straight onto the rides. They are a fast pass for the rides, meaning that you can get into the speedy line rather than having to queue and wait longer in the standby line. So I think there are 2 types of express passes. One is where you can go on every ride once, and the other one is unlimited. So in with our hotel room, we actually had 4 unlimited express passes. So I'm just looking at my laptop here, and for the pass where you get to go on every single ride once, you would pay per park £89 on top of your standard ticket price for your admission to the parks. If you were to buy the unlimited express passes, you would pay £115 for Universal and £120, don't know why, for Islands of Adventure. I wonder why that's a £5 difference. But again, that would be on top of your tickets that you'd already purchased for your theme park admission. So from that, we figured that the Express Unlimited passes, had we been eager to purchase them ourselves, that cost put together paid for our room. So it was so worth staying on site. Of course, there's the easy access to the parks, but that in itself was such a wow moment. What I will say is I definitely think you would be okay if you are staying off site just paying for the £89 one for each park. It's very expensive, so even if you just decided to do it for one park, I would say probably do it for Universal Studios, but I think it would definitely be worth it. I'm not sure if you would get your use out of the Express Pass, because we didn't. We did every single ride once, but the only ride that we did again was Transformers, and it actually broke down while we were in the queue. Then we had a 15-minute wait simply because it had broken down, and that was our longest wait time all day in Universal. It was amazing. So I would say it's definitely worth having one of the Express Pass tickets, but I wouldn't necessarily say you should pay the extra for the unlimited pass. So I hope that's helpful. So Universal and Islands of Adventure themselves were absolutely amazing. Definitely our favourite portion of our entire holiday. The crowd levels were perfect. There were enough people in the parks to make it atmospheric and give it that ambience that it needs. But again, with the passes, you could get onto every single ride. There wasn't too many people in the park that if you were getting into a queue for food, it was really tedious and you were wasting time waiting. It was absolutely, I would say it was ideal, the crowd levels in Universal and Islands. Mike and I were trying to think of negatives for Universal and Islands of Adventure from our trip. We had one thing for each park. So for Universal, we said, and this isn't even a bad thing, just that most of the rides are simulators, so there's not a lot of variety. But saying that, you do have rides like Rip Ride Rockit and what else? The Mummy Returns, or Gringotts, which I suppose is a little bit of a hybrid ride because you're on the coaster track, but you've got still the visual, which is like the simulator part. So that was literally the only thing that we both noted, and it's not a bad thing, it was just an observation. And then for Islands of Adventure, I think a lot of people would agree with this. Half of Islands is mainly aimed at children, so you kind of lose a lot of adult engagement. And we did notice even that those areas that were like the Cat in the Hat area, the Dr. Seuss land, they were actually very, very quiet, which was strange. I do apologise if the camera angle has moved a tiny bit because I had to restart it because I just have too much to say. We had amazing food in Universal. I would recommend you to try the Polo chicken tacos from Bumblebee Man's Taco Truck in Simpsons Land, as well as the Big Pink, which is the huge lard lad donut in Simpsons Land too. Another thing that I really enjoyed was not so much the butterbeer frozen drink that I had. That was very, very sugary. It was nice, but it was super sugary. So you would definitely have to have a very sweet tooth for that. But I did really enjoy the butterbeer ice cream from Florian's, so I would recommend that you go and pay that a visit. It kind of just tasted like toffee ice cream, but I don't know if it was psychological because I knew it was called butterbeer, but it just tasted a bit more special. Do you know what I mean? I am a huge wimp when it comes to rides, and this time I set myself up to try and be braver because we'd had to postpone this holiday twice because of COVID, and so I'd said to Mike, right, that's it, you know, I need to rinse it as much as I can, get every single thing out of it that I can. So Gringotts, I hadn't done, and this might be a spoiler, so I will put a timestamp here somewhere for you to skip if you don't want to hear about the ride. Gringotts was one that I was nervous for, and not the simulator part at all. That doesn't really bother me. I do get a little bit motion sick, but having been on so many simulators on the holiday that we just went on, I think I definitely have a much bigger tolerance than I thought for stuff like that. What scared me about Gringotts was the supposed drop at the start. So it's really hard to see when you watch online videos. I cannot deal with the unknown. I don't know if that's to do with my anxiety or anything like that. So I had watched some like POV videos on YouTube, but because it's so dark and it's 4D, you can't really see what's going on. So I still didn't have a real grasp of what happened on the ride or what this drop was. So we went on it, and I will say that afterwards I was like proud of myself, but I was like, wow, I'm never doing that ride again. But I think that's just because I'm a wimp. I felt like the drop was really intense after going on the ride, and then I actually watched some POVs afterwards, ones that I hadn't seen before, where the lights had been on and the ride had been like faulty or broken down, but the lights were on, but you can actually see what the drop is, and it is barely a drop. What it is you are level, and then something happens on the 3D screen and it tilts your carriage like, I'd say like this much. All you can see at the end of this is a black hole. And so in fact it might be a bit more of a tilt than that. And so you're feeling like you're being held, you're just like waiting to plunge to your death is what it feels like. And then all of a sudden they just release the carriage and you swoop down. Basically you do this and then it levels out and it moves around and blah blah blah, but you're in the pitch black so you can't see. And you're going at like a decent speed, I don't know what speed you're going at, but it feels like you are just plunging into a black hole and it feels so steep. And because you've got no concept, because it's so pitch black, you've got no concept of what angle you're at, what way you're facing, it just feels like you are constantly going like this. It feels like you're going right into the inside of the earth, the center of the earth. I think it was the fact that they just created such suspense by hanging you there like this before releasing you. And I think the carriages are quite heavy, so it just feels like you're hurtling to your death. Great ride, thoroughly enjoyed it, 10 out of 10. I am joking, it is a brilliant ride and I would definitely recommend that you go on it. And I definitely would go on it again. It was just as soon as I'd done it, I was like, yeah, that's not for me. Another amazing thing about Universal would have to be all of the street performers and the street goings on. There's just so much happening all the time, whether it's people walking around on stilts in crazy cool costumes or an a cappella group. You're kind of just discovering different performances and things going on around every corner. Or there was a dance party being held in the middle of the street, Marilyn Monroe was walking down the street, Betty Boop was walking down the street. It's just really, really cool. There's so much going on and I think that that's brilliant. I think that that keeps people really engaged and you're looking out for things then, so it makes it so much more immersive and exciting. We are going to be here all day if I keep talking about Universal, so moving on to Islands of Adventure. That was brilliant. We had a good day there. We only had half a day in Islands because we were leaving to go to another location, the second part of our trip later in the day. So we didn't need more than a morning in Islands though, we found, because we still got to go on. I didn't go on it, but I could have had you on there and said I did. But Mike went on Velocicoaster. The first thing that we went to was Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure. Let's go with that. Which was as good as everyone says it is. That you cannot even, until you're on that ride, you don't know how fast it goes. Even when you're stood watching the ride, it doesn't look even half as fast as it actually is when you're on the ride. But it's so fast and powerful and just brilliant. It's so good, it's so much fun, and there's a drop at one point, but apart from that it's really low coaster. It's just super fast. There's lots of twists and turns. There's also a couple of secret things that happen in the ride that I won't say in case you are going and want to keep it a surprise. But yeah, it's brilliant, Hagrid's. It's absolutely fantastic. My favourite ride in all of Universal and Islands of Adventure was Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. I didn't know anything about it really. I think that I was aware it was a simulator. Oh my goodness. Like that for me, I absolutely adore Flight of Passage in the world of Avatar in Animal Kingdom, Disney World, but Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey technically was just on another level to anything that I've ever been on. I absolutely loved it. I will say that that is a ride that apparently really causes bad motion sickness, so be warned if you are prone to things like motion sickness. Without saying too much, you are on a ginormous robotic arm that you have no idea that you're on this contraption. But I looked into it afterwards because I was so impressed with the ride. And you're sat with like a shoulder bar over you and your legs dangling and stuff, and it can just move you and manipulate where you're turning, and there's like a couple of parts where you're like lying on your back. It's so good, so highly recommend. A snack that we did try in Islands of Adventure was the pizza pretzel that we've heard people rave about. I will say I didn't really like it. I don't know what it was, I just wasn't a fan of it. So that is from the lemon slush stand near Superhero Land. Yeah, I just wasn't really a fan, but my mum, dad and Mike all really loved it. So try it for yourself and I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. Maybe my taste buds were a bit off that day, but I just wasn't really a big fan of it. Huge thing that I'd forgotten to say that I do want to rave about was, again, our hotel. So because we were club level, we had club level perks. So there was a club lounge and we were able to go into the lounge in the morning and grab whatever we wanted for breakfast. You could do a grab and go or you could sit in there. It was lovely. You had lovely views. You could see some of the rides in the parks. I had some melon. They had cereal, porridge, toast, they had muffins, they had pancakes, waffles, they had cheese and meat. It was so good, so extensive. And at any time of day you could go in and grab a drink. They had a couple of fridges that you could get things like pop or juice from. Every evening they did have an alcohol hour. It was between like 6 and 7 or 7 and 8, I can't really remember. I could have got the timing completely wrong there, but they did have an alcohol hour. Every night they also had dessert hour, which I think was 7 till 8. I don't know if alcohol hour was the same as dessert hour, I really can't remember. And every night they also did a little bit of a buffet tea, so they changed it every night, or it was on certain nights that they did certain things. We were only there for 2 nights. But one night they had meatballs and spaghetti, another night they had chicken fajitas, but there was bits and bobs that you could grab to go with your, you know, to complement your main dish. So Universal Hotel was just spot on. We cannot fault it at all. We can't fault any of Universal and Islands of Adventure. It was just brilliant. The water taxis are fantastic, by the way. They are really, really, really good, and you get to and from City Walk within 5 minutes maximum. Maybe it was a little bit more, it definitely didn't feel it, but I would say you were there in 5 minutes. If you wanted to walk, I think it was about a 15-20 minute walk to get to City Walk. The walk to the park was by the lovely water where the water boats would take you, and it was just beautiful scenery, lovely flowers, really pleasant walk. The only reason we sometimes took the water taxi was if our legs were tired, if we'd been walking in the parks all day, or if we were really trying to rush and get our early admission in for the theme parks. The boats, I think from memory, were every 15 to 20 minutes, but we found that we never waited more than 5 minutes for a boat, so that was just a definite perk that, yeah. Why can't I speak? Okay, buckle in. I am so sad. I don't want to be negative, and I would prefer this to come across in a way of positive change being made. So our main thing when we booked for Florida was that we wanted to avoid UK holidays, school holidays, and we really wanted to avoid spring break in the USA. So we found out when spring break was, and we checked other holidays. We thought we'd checked well enough for other holidays that might intervene with the dates that we selected, and we did not find anything. We were none the wiser. What then came apparent as it got closer to our trip is that we were going to be there for President's Day and President's Day weekend, which we had no idea what this meant for the theme parks, and what it meant was it was chock-a-block. You could not move. We went to Animal Kingdom on the Sunday of President's Day weekend. Yeah. What makes me really sad is that Disney implemented this park booking reservation system to keep crowd levels manageable after COVID, and I have never seen so many people in the parks. Like, I'm not even kidding, guys. The Kilimanjaro Safari, where the ride queue starts, the queue went on and on, curling like this, just through the rest of the park. It was madness. Flight of Passage was just ridiculous. It was like 3-4 hour wait all day. Needless to say, we did Dinosaur, and we went to see the Lion King show. We went to see the Nemo show, which is one of our favourites because of the music. And that is all we did in Animal Kingdom because we just could not move. Had I been more educated on Genie Plus at that point in our trip, then I would have definitely bought the 4 of us lightning lanes for Flight of Passage. But at that point, it was our first day in Disney. I didn't really have a cap on what I needed to do with Genie Plus. And that was our one day that we had planned in to go to Animal Kingdom, so it was just a huge disappointment. Another thing that we had no idea was a thing was the Disney race days. And they are mental. The amount of people that these race days draw to the parks is insane. We had no idea that these race days were a thing, that they happened. We have never encountered them before. We must be very lucky to have always booked at reasonable times. Apparently, if you go onto Disney's website, you can actually see when these race days are scheduled for and avoid at all costs. That is my one piece of advice to you. While we were there, the parks actually hit record highs, and we were seeing articles just thinking, what on earth are we doing here right now? We were also unaware that we were there when there was some cheerleading and dancing competitions going on in the area, which again, obviously brought people to Disney and to the parks. There was a car race thing going on at Daytona called Daytona 500. So I just think it was terrible planning. The worst time to go. I wasn't actually involved in the booking of the flight. I was surprised with the flight for my birthday, so I don't blame myself. So it was way too busy, way too busy. I'm sure that everyone that was in the parks agreed, because it was so unpleasant. You were getting trod on the whole time, you were bumping into people. It was just awful. It was so unpleasant. You couldn't get onto any rides. It was just a shambles. I feel like this time around, rides were broken down more than they've ever been before. One of the most annoying days was when we queued in the Magic Kingdom for Thunder Mountain, and we queued for an hour and 10 minutes. Thunder Mountain's my favourite ride, so I do not mind queuing for Thunder Mountain. But I do mind when the ride breaks down and you don't have the option to stay in the queue and just wait it out, even if it's going to be another hour. They usher everyone that's just been waiting for that time out and just kick you out of the line. They just want you all gone. They don't know when the problem's going to be resolved. So that was disappointing. From there we went on to the Haunted Mansion, which we queued 40 minutes for, which was okay, but it's Haunted Mansion. It's not a 40-minute queuer, is it? So we finally get onto Haunted Mansion, and while we're on the ride, this was hysterical. This was so funny. So we were obviously in twos because it's like your little doom buggy in Haunted Mansion, and we were just in front of my mum and dad, and we literally, as if you've been to Disney World and on Haunted Mansion, you know it's like a conveyor belt and you get into your vehicle. So we get into our vehicles and we literally get to where like the scene starts, where it's, you know, creepy, there's candles moving, there's door knockers going, and literally, I mean at the very beginning of the ride, and we just stop and we just all started wetting ourselves. We were like, you could not make this up. What is going on? So we'd obviously broken down, and then we did start up again, and we broke down a further 2 times on that one ride. I won't list every single ride that broke down, but yeah, we just felt like there were far more breakdowns and faults this time around with rides themselves. So I'm a little bit nervous to bring this up, but I do want to talk about it because I think it's important. So Disney staff, some of the staff were amazing, most of the staff were amazing, but in general, because we are, you know, fortunate enough to be able to compare it to when we've been previously, we felt and were very aware that the staff were a lot less bothered. They weren't really happy. I know they're humans and everyone's allowed to have a bad day, but generally there was, you know, the air of magic that's usually there. It kind of felt like it had been quashed and everyone was just a bit fed up to be there, staff included. Maybe it was because of crowd levels. Maybe they were having to deal with more you know, difficult customers in the parks. But yeah, there wasn't really the whole, when you walk in the past and they're all waving and welcoming you, it wasn't really like that this time around. And I think I overheard staff letting their like genuine feels come through in their tones rather than being all happy and sunshine and smiles, which is fine because they are human. But it was a difference that we noticed, so I wanted to report that to you guys. Okay, the prices. We paid nearly £500 per ticket for a 14-day ticket for Disney for each person. That has gone up exponentially since we started going to Disney many years ago, but fine. We knew what the price was when we decided to go to Disney. What I don't think is okay is Disney then charging you on top of that if you want to actually get onto any of the rides, basically. That is how it was this time around. If we didn't have Genie Plus, we weren't getting on the rides unless it was a crap ride that no one really liked and you could walk on. Oh no, I need to change my battery. 1 second. The camera angle's probably going to change a bit.
Okay. Damn it.
If you wanted to get onto the main rides, the favourite rides, which for lightning lanes there is one in every single park, then without a lightning lane you're going to be queuing at least 2.5 hours, probably more. Most definitely more, I would say. So that felt like daylight robbery because we'd already paid such a huge chunk of money that you shouldn't have had to pay any extra to get onto the rides. That is ridiculous. Essentially you're paying £500 to be able to walk around each park. No sis. So that was ridiculous. Magic bands, we were so excited to get magic bands to wear. and we all ended up saying absolutely not, and we just used our cards that we had. Magic bands started at $35, which is okay for a plain colour, but if you wanted anything patterned, you were looking at $75, $85. I think $85 was the most expensive one that I saw. I was really excited to choose a new pair of Mickey ears. I absolutely love my Mickey ears that I bought last time, and I wore them every single time I went to the parks. This time around, ears were on average, I would say $50, and again they went up to $85 or so. I just wasn't going to buy a pair of ears for that, guys. Who's got that kind of money to spend when you've already spent so much on the holiday? And some people have got that kind of money to spend, but I'm sure they would rather not spend so much money for a pair of Mickey ears or a magic band. And then I really wanted a Spirit jersey. It seemed that we needed to make some decisions on what we would put our money into, because I was not about to buy a magic band, ears and a Spirit jersey, because I would have not been able to eat for the last week of our holiday. So I decided, and Mike decided, that our Disney purchase would be a Spirit jersey. So we did get a Spirit jersey each. Mine was $90. No, it was more than that, because this is it. You have, I think it said $89.99, and then when you get to the counter, there's tax. So mine was like closer to $94, or it might be $96. And I think Mike's was maybe $5 less than mine. So I chose the Spirit jersey that I did because of the colours, and they're in like a tie-dye pattern. It's really pretty and really strong and bold colours, and it had the gold writing on the back where it says Walt Disney World, so I really love mine. And Mike, of course, got a Star Wars one. Mike also bought me this necklace in Animal Kingdom. So if you've watched my vlog, you might have seen that. It's Leia, by the way, I'll show you it in a minute. But you may have seen that our dog Obi ran away from home while we were in Animal Kingdom. So that was on our first Disney day, and we hadn't even been in Florida for a week at this point. That moment kind of was the end of my holiday, which is such a shame because it was so early on, but that was just one of the worst days of our lives. Knowing that you're 4,000 miles away and your baby has ran off. It's been a few hours, people can't find them. Worst feeling in the world. He was found and he was safe and healthy and fine, but that was a really horrible day, so upsetting. I just wanted to come home. I just wanted to get on the next plane and come and see that my little boys were okay. I couldn't, so as we were leaving the park, Mike bought me this necklace. So it's Princess Leia's head. It's got a tag on it that says "Rule Your Galaxy." Which I absolutely love. He got it me because he said I'm his Princess Leia, and it kind of got me through the holiday, to be honest. It really perked me up, and it made me feel, I don't know, it made me feel safe. I don't know. It was just such a lovely thing for him to do and say, and he's so cute. Every time I caught him looking at something in any of the shops while we were on holiday, he was always looking at something for me. So overall for Disney, I am so sad to say that this was the first time that I felt like the magic had gone, and I had taken my rose-tinted glasses off, and I was far more aware that this was a company that had money to make. But not even just that, more that they were a company that were prepared to sacrifice the enjoyment of guests to just cram more guests in, get more dollars in the bank. I don't know, I love Disney more than anything, but this time was just so very different. I think because we hadn't been since COVID, I was putting a lot of weight onto that trip, thinking that Disney would fix all my problems, they would make me feel better, I would feel refreshed. When I came home and it was like, oh, it didn't do any of that, and it actually felt like the magic had gone. It just makes me so sad, really sad. I will never stop loving Disney, and I will return to Walt Disney World, but I think it's going to be a long time. Disneyland Paris, however, where we went in December, was incredible, and I'd go back to Paris in a heartbeat. Okay, so my favourite Disney rides, number one would always have to be Thunder Mountain. I absolutely loved Rise of the Resistance, but, oh, spoiler alert, skip to the time that I put here if you don't want to hear about it. Guys, was not expecting that drop. Was not expecting that drop. Like, again, when you watch videos, you think you know exactly how the ride's going to go, but you don't actually have any idea until you're on it and physically there experiencing it for yourself. But I will not do Tower of Terror, so let me tell you, when we slid into that thing and it locked on, I was fully prepared for the simulator bit and all that. When we dropped, I almost wish that I'd taken a spare pair of pants. Oh, I am really sad though, because we didn't get to see the Kylo Ren animatronic. It was down. Apparently for that ride there is a version A and a version B, and version A is the animatronics working. We got version B. Version B, I believe, is very, very common, which sucks. Like, sort the animatronic out, Disney. We were excited to see it. We got to meet BB-8. We did queue to meet BB-8 after that ride as well. That was great. I also absolutely loved Slinky Dog Dash, I think is what it's called. That was brilliant. Again, that looks so much slower when you're stood off ride watching it go round. And then when we were on it, it was quite fast. So that was really, really fun. That was a thrill. Fantasmic is and always will be my favourite show in Disney World. The new bits were just incredible, so moving and really magical. Elsa's bit was super, and Moana's bit is everyone's favourite bit. That was amazing. But I also loved the Mulan section in it. I thought that was brilliant too. There was so much new stuff in that show. The only thing that I was surprised about was that they'd put all of the new bits together back to back. I thought they would have changed it throughout in subtle ways, but it was like brand new section inserted here, and then we'll go back to the old, you know, just completely the same format as it used to be, with the villains and then the boat coming around, or the princesses, and then the big boat and all that. So yeah, but one thing that I was really sad about was I think that they've tinkered with Nemo the musical in Animal Kingdom, and the big seagull didn't come out. There was no part with the big seagull, and maybe it's because logistically it was difficult because he's such a big prop. But I used to love that bit. I used to think that was so impressive, and he's gone. This time we also did Turtle Talk with Crush, and that was brilliant. If you go to Galaxy's Edge and you go to the place where you can get Ronto wraps for breakfast, get the berry oats. I can't remember what they're called, but they are the nicest oats I have ever had. We also went to Ogre's Cantina, and we were right by the DJ booth, which was amazing. That was so cool. Such a cool vibe and atmosphere in there. The drinks in there are so visually impressive, so even if you're not a Star Wars fan, I would say go and check out Ogre's Cantina. But you do need a reservation, so make sure you do get one of those. Hot cookie hour at Gideon's Bakehouse. Unreal. Another favourite park snack in Hollywood Studios was the Jack Jack Cookie Num Num, I think it's called. So I will put here where you can get yourself one of those. They are incredible. Hot cookies. It just like, oh, they just fall apart. They're warm. They're absolutely delicious. The Gideon's cookie with the ice cream and the Jack Jack cookie, definitely my two favourite snacks from the trip. Yeah, there's loads that I could talk about in that sense, but at the end of our trip, we stayed at Disney's Beach Club Resort for 3 nights, and it was beautiful. It was our first time staying on Disney property in America. We stayed in the Art of Marvel Hotel last December in Disneyland Paris, and that was amazing. That was absolutely wonderful. But we'd never stayed on Disney property in the USA, and we did that this time. That was brilliant. We were literally a 5-minute walk to Epcot's international gateway entrance, so I think we got to go in between France and England, so we were able to get right on Remy if we wanted to. And I think it was about a 20 to 25 minute walk to Hollywood Studios. We did that. We also got the Skyliner. Because we stayed in a Disney Deluxe hotel, we got extra magic hours in Epcot on one of the nights from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. and we met our lovely friends Ken and Susan out there, and we did the extra magic hours with them. We literally got to go on every ride in Epcot. It was like we had the park to ourselves practically. It was mad. I couldn't believe how accessible it was and how completely empty all the ride lines were. Also, as we were staying on Disney property the last few days, we also got to go into the parks half an hour early, which was very beneficial because it enabled us to get into the queues before all of the regular park guests came in, so we had just a little bit of a head start. We did eat at the Cape May restaurant in Beach Club, and we did the breakfast, and it was a character breakfast. It was Minnie and friends, so there was Minnie, Donald, Goofy, Daisy, I think, was that it? And they were in beach gear. The food was absolutely incredible. I think that cost us around $45 per person. There was so much choice and everything was delicious. So that is something that I would recommend if you are looking for a tasty breakfast on Disney property. So I will just talk very briefly about Genie Plus. So Genie Plus replaced Disney's old FastPass system. In every park, there is one ride that is lightning laneable. Laneable. So in Magic Kingdom, it is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. In Hollywood Studios, it's Rise of the Resistance. In Animal Kingdom, it's Flight of Passage. And in Epcot, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. If you want to fast track any of those 4 rides, you want a lightning lane for any of those 4 rides, you pay specifically for that ride. That, I believe, can vary from $11 to up to $30. I don't know if it's ever been that much, but that's kind of the ballpark where it usually falls. If you buy Genie Plus, you can get on any of the other rides in the parks by using the fast lane. What's confusing is all these other rides, the fast track lane is still called Lightning Lane, but specific lightning lanes are only the 4 that I've mentioned, which is 1 in each park. However, if you buy Genie Plus and you have a Genie Plus reservation for a ride, you use the lightning lane of that ride. I hope that makes sense. This is what's stupidly confusing. Genie Plus can vary from when we were there. It was between $16 and $29 per day. How much it is completely depends on the day of the week, if there's a special holiday. So imagine at Christmas on a Saturday in Magic Kingdom, it's going to be the most expensive it could be. So if you're staying off-site, you're not staying on Disney property, you can purchase Genie Plus for that day at park opening time. So if park opening is 9 AM, you can purchase Genie Plus then, and you can pick one ride to make a reservation for. You can then make one ride reservation following that every 2 hours. So if you make your first ride reservation for Thunder Mountain at 9 AM, you then have to wait till 11 AM to make your next ride reservation, and again, you can do one. For Genie Plus, you are given the window in which you need to attend that ride reservation and get on the ride, whereas for lightning lanes, one of the 4 rides that I've mentioned, you can pick what time you want to go. But just for Genie Plus, you get given an hour's window when you have to make your ride. You have to make that reservation. So say I went onto my Disney Experience app at 9 AM, park open, and I managed to purchase Genie Plus and get a reservation for Thunder Mountain at 10:30 that morning. I can then go and get onto that ride using my Genie Plus. So it's 10:30, I go, I scan, I do my magic band or I do my card. Once I have checked in, scanned in for that ride, I can then make another Genie Plus reservation. I no longer need to wait till 11 o'clock because I've used my first reservation. Where I found Genie Plus most beneficial was when we were going into a park in the afternoon or the evening, or afternoon/evening, because I could start making my ride reservations from the time that the park opened and then every 2 hours. Say at 9 AM I managed to get a Thunder Mountain reservation for much later in the day, and then at 11 AM I managed to get a Haunted Mansion reservation for later in the day. But I'd really wanted to get a Peter Pan reservation. If later on Peter Pan reservations become available, I can actually modify my Haunted Mansion reservation and move it to Peter Pan if the slot becomes available and it all works out. What you should never do is cancel your reservation, always modify it, because you kind of just are able to milk the system then, get the most out of the system that you can. You're paying for it, so get as much as you can from it. Once you have used your last booked reservation and scanned in for it, that is when it opens up for you to make a new reservation. If you'd made at 9 AM a reservation for Thunder Mountain at 5 PM, but then at 11 AM you'd managed to make a Peter Pan reservation for 3 PM, you would then, after you'd used your reservation at 3 PM, be able to make a new one. If your Peter Pan reservation fell after 5 PM, you wouldn't be able to scan in for your Thunder Mountain and then make a new reservation. You would have to wait until you've checked in and scanned in for your Peter Pan reservation, because that was your last booked ride, until it opened up new slots. This is so damn confusing, and I do apologise. All that being said, we did find Genie Plus very, very necessary, and we absolutely found Lightning Lanes super necessary. So apart from Animal Kingdom, which we only did go to once, we had a couple of days in all the other parks. So we paid for Genie Plus in Magic Kingdom and Epcot once each time. We didn't find it necessary to purchase Genie Plus for Hollywood Studios because we had early entry later in the holiday, and we did manage to get on everything that we wanted to. But we did find it necessary for Epcot and Magic Kingdom. Lightning Lanes were a godsend because we did not fancy standing in a 4 to 5 hour queue for Rise of the Resistance. It was genuinely 4 to 5 hours both days that we went to Hollywood Studios. We had Lightning Lane, we walked straight on, but the Lightning Lane did cost us $22 per person for that one ride. Mine Train, it was also very necessary. Flight of Passage, as I said previously, we would have definitely gone for a Lightning Lane for if I had been able to work out Genie Plus. And then Guardians of the Galaxy, there's no standby line. There is either a Lightning Lane that you pay for or a virtual queue. It's so confusing. So virtual queues for Guardians of the Galaxy, because it's such a new ride, it's so popular. I think this is how it used to go for Rise of the Resistance, so I'm sure that there will be eventually a standby line for Guardians of the Galaxy. So you can either Lightning Lane it or you can get in the virtual queue. I'm not going to try and go into whether you have to be in the park to get the virtual queue or not, but I'm just going to tell you that basically you have 2 chances to get into the virtual queue every day. One is at 7 AM and one is at 1 PM. I believe that for the 1 PM one, you do have to be in the park, but for the 7 AM one, I'm not sure. I'm not too sure. So when we left our villa and we went and checked into Disney's Beach Club Resort, which by the way, the check-in was supposed to be 3 PM or 4 PM. We went and checked in because we had our Cape May breakfast that same day at 10 to 10. We checked in at 9 and they said, that's fine, your room's ready, you can just go and get in your room. So that was amazing. So after our Cape May breakfast, we went into Epcot and got on a few rides. It was so good just being able to walk straight into the park, and we noticed that it was approaching 1 PM, so we ran straight over to Guardians of the Galaxy, and I sat there refresh like this, and it came up and I got a virtual queue for Guardians of the Galaxy. I didn't do it, which I am disappointed about, because I read that Guardians had a dedicated person for cleaning sick up. I have emetophobia and I also do get motion sick, so it kind of scared me away from the ride. I know that some people have said it made them feel rotten and some people said it didn't even touch them. I was fine on Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, as I say, so I might have been fine on Guardians. I just didn't want to risk it and feel rubbish, and I didn't want to be around people that might be being sick and things like that, so I didn't do Guardians. But my dad and Mike did Guardians. My mum also gets dreadful motion sickness, so we just waited it out, stayed off the ride, and lived our Guardians experience through Mike and my dad telling us about it. The day that we left to fly home, Mike wanted to go into Epcot in the morning because we had early entry and he wanted to get onto Guardians again. So I got up bright and early. I literally set my alarm for like 6:30, was refreshing, and because we were on Disney property, I do want to note that at that point I didn't have to be near Epcot, like right by the gates, in order to get a virtual queue. But I don't know if you're off-site, if it's different or anything. But I was refreshing and I did manage to get a virtual queue, but it was for like 2:05 in the afternoon. We had to leave to go to the airport at around 2 PM. So Mike was still fast asleep, sleeping beauty next to me, and I just thought I'll just treat him to a Lightning Lane. So I bought a Lightning Lane for the day that we left just for Mike. So I think I'm going to call it a day on this video because I've been filming for almost 2 hours. I hope that you've enjoyed this really chatty sit down, just unpacking of our whole Disney experience really. To summarise, Universal was a far more enjoyable experience all round than any day in Disney that we had. But Disney, we got to experience loads of cool new rides that we haven't done before because it's been 5 years since we were there, so that was amazing. And of course, even if the magic felt like it had gone to some degree, it's still Disney. I still love Disney. I love being in the shops. I just think they need to get a grip on crowd levels. I do think they need to bring back the old fast pass system and just stop trying to rinse people of their money, because we pay so much to come to your parks. I also did once read that Disney parking in their parking lots to get into their parks, that income alone pays to keep their parks open. So come on, Disney, come on. It's such a beautiful place to be and a magical place to experience when you're able to, when you can get onto the rides, when you aren't just like sardines in the park. There will be children with siblings that are all desperate to get ears, but some families just can't afford to pay these prices that they're currently charging. I would not have been able to afford a magic band, a pair of ears, and a spirit jersey. I also really wanted to try and look at getting into pin trading this time, and I looked at the price of the lanyards and it's just too expensive. It's too expensive, guys. So yeah, I feel like we've had a very good natter, and I hope that you've taken something away from this video or just chilled out with me and listened to me babble on about our Disney experience and Universal experience from February. And yeah, maybe you've got some tips and tricks from this video. I do hope that it's been beneficial to you in some way. And I'm just really grateful that you're here and that you've given me your time. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Yeah, I love you. That's amazing. Thank you. And I guess until then, I will see you in my next video. So stay safe, have a wonderful day, and I love you very much.